Welcome to Think Business with Tyler, sharing our methods and strategies for success. Join in on our conversations with business owners as we highlight their triumphs and detail how they overcame the challenges they faced while continuing to grow and scale their business. It's time to think life, think success, and think business with your host, Tyler Martin.
I am pleased to bring you today's guest, Sunil Godse. Sunil coaches businesses on how to implement intuitive branding in areas such as leadership, HR, sales, and marketing. Sunil did a passionate and engaging presentation on TEDx about intuition, which I'll include in this episode's show notes. And most recently, he turned around a business from a struggling company at $400K in revenue to $3.5 million in little more than 2 years. Sunil, welcome. How are you, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much for having me as a guest.
Awesome. Great to have you here. Hey, I wanted to start out with, if you would explain for us, what is intuitive branding and intuitive resonance exactly?
Yeah.
Okay,
so intuitive branding is really about using the intuition of others to really buy into what you're doing. And when I look at intuition and the research behind it, it's really the foundation of establishing trust. And it happens in the limbic system of your brain, which means anytime there's any decision you have to make, it's instant. And what happens is what intuition looks for in trust is the questions that intuition's asking is, can I trust that person? Is the messaging actually matching what they're selling? Are they a trusted brand? Do what they sell resonate with my values? And a lot of that just gets put into exactly what you want to do with a company, whether you want to work for them. Is that a safe place? Do I love the management? Do I resonate with their core values, which should be feeling based and, move away from just something on a wall? Like everybody wants to be the best, have the best customer service, but it's just something on a wall. If that's what management does not behave in any way, if you're not incentivized in that way, then you're not going to believe it, right? And this is where intuition starts mistrusting or distrusting the company. And from a customer's perspective, I mean, even today, I'm not a customer, but I was a potential customer of Sonos. And a really good friend of mine, Sheetal Jaitley, he's a big guy, owns a Tribal Scale. It's an international brand. And he tweeted this morning saying that Sonos was supposed to help him, get some kind of issue resolved with one of his products. They said it would happen the next day. And he's 30 days later, there was nothing. And he actually, he retweeted me saying that there was supposed to be an order and there was nothing on their order books. And so like one kind of weird moment after another, not only have they kind of potentially lost him as a customer on a high-end product, but I know him. And that means that if I was going to, and I was actually funny enough, looking at Sonos a while back for a number of products, there's a high likelihood I'm not going to buy their stuff. And so these are things that they can't track, right? So as a customer, they're never going to hear from me. I'm never going to buy from them. So this is where my intuition is now saying, wow, that's not an experience I want to go through. And if you look at things in the marketplace as well, if I hear of a brand, even if it's a commodity item like ketchup, there was one, Heinz had come in and taken over this huge area called Leamington, Ontario, and fired everybody because they wanted to look at the numbers. That doesn't resonate with me as a Canadian. And so I switched my brand, right? And so again, these are things that happen at an intuitive level. And this is what happens when companies need to nail down, what are they doing for their employees in an authentic way? What are they doing for their customers in an authentic way? What are they doing for the marketplace in an authentic way? And it's believable because everybody believes it. And that's what my intuition is looking at. And so where intuitive resonance comes in is that it's just like a skipping rope. When you're looking at a skipping rope and both the intuition, my intuition and your intuition are in sync, right, that's resonance. And that's just like a skipping rope. Like when two people are starting a skipping rope, it's kind of floppy. They have the right sort of hertz or the cycle, and then it kind of goes. And it really starts from being authentic and trusting intuition at the start. And don't forget, intuition is a two-way street. And so that's what intuitive branding is. And so when you can do all the things from what you can do in hiring, in leadership, in sales, in marketing, you touch the marketplace, you touch employees, you touch customers, and then everybody becomes your brand. And that's how you crush your competition. And the research shows that trust happens in, on average, 14 seconds.
Wow.
14 seconds.
So I got a question for you to just drill down a little bit deeper on that. Using a case where something's gone wrong. So,
Mhm.
your friend today had a bad experience. Let's drill down a little bit. Someone that's applying intuitive branding, things are going to go wrong. Is there more credibility when something goes wrong if that intuitive branding has been done from the beginning? So if something went wrong with your friend and there's a higher level of intuitive branding, is there more, I don't want to say leniency, but does an individual have more value in that brand so they're willing to give a little more flexibility? Or is it how the company responds when something goes wrong as part of that intuitive branding? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So the flexibility is an individual choice. And so the flexibility would be, let's say in my case, Sheetal's flexibility will be a week, but my flexibility may be 2 days. And you would expect that if you have a product like Sonos, which is a higher end product, then you're dealing with a little bit more discernment in people buying these products. And this is not a we versus them argument. It's just that people have a tendency to like to be a little bit more stroked, with ego when you come to that kind of level. And so it's really the response that happens, right? And so the response of 30 days is really egregious when you've got, other products that are responding. Amazon's a great example, right? As much as there's stuff in what they do in the marketplace with their hiring practices or the dollar per hour and all that stuff that's going on in the marketplace. I'm telling you, every single time I have an issue with Amazon, it is dealt with.
Right.
It is dealt with. So there's such a seamless, it's so easy. And it's easy for me to forgive Amazon because if I have 10 really good experiences and one is a bad experience, and I have this sort of intuitively, I know that they're trying,
right,
or there's something that happened. I'm talking myself into staying with the brand because they've established that initial trust. And that's also what happens when you have that trust in a brand, is that you can be forgiven as long as that being forgiven is for a legitimate reason in my eyes, because I'm the customer. Now, it could be that I'm looking for a deal and, that's just my time to say, oh yeah, I can stick them. And certainly there may be people like that because every customer is going to be different, but it's that response, like 30 days to me is egregious. And so essentially I tweeted back saying, this is a person you don't want to let go. So I would hope that there's some kind of reparations and freebies given to him. And because that's what I would expect. And then I would expect him hopefully to tweet that. And then Sonos may be in their decision set or maybe not. That 30 days is way too long for me, especially if I'm buying and we're all busy. 30 days that's just not acceptable.
Right. I love your example there. Amazon is a great case of where intuitively as a consumer, they're going to do the right thing. So you have this comfort going into transactions with them that even if something goes wrong, they'll take care of you. And so that's just such a great example of it. What do you see common challenges with businesses as it relates to intuitive branding?
Well, I think there's a lot of businesses that are just frankly looking at the bottom line. They're looking at laggard indicators. They're not looking, and they think about culture as this thing that has to happen. Culture is when somebody really, you have a number of people, each individually who love their position. They love working for you. That's what glues culture together. And oftentimes, ping pong balls are put in or, foosball tables as a sign for culture. It's the thing to do, maybe moving from cubicles to having big tables. So there's all these things that I think they're trying, because it was written in some article, but it starts with how you treat people. In the end, business is about relationships and who you have around you and how you lead them. And there's empathy. They may be saying you're wrong when you're wrong, having moments of clarity where, you are comfortable, because a lot of times, sometimes as a leader, you may be on 95% of the time and the 5% you blow your top off, and guess what gets remembered, right? It's the time you blow your top off. Those are the ones that hit the scores saying, why does do you like your manager? And they're going to remember that one thing. So it's really, taking care of your own mindset and making sure that you're okay. And, then we can get into even sort of the intangible things about balance and, stepping away from the office, and it can go on and on. But in the end, it's really that relationship that you have. And for those companies I worked for as an employee, those companies I worked with as a consultant, I can easily walk in and say, I want to work for these people. I instantly know when there's a client that's going to be a problem, and that's exactly what happens. And everybody can do this because everybody's intuition hits them. Everybody can walk into a place and say, I think the people are happy here. So it's not this you wear a cape and you have to be Superman or Superwoman to have this intuitive ability. We're all born with it. And it happens every single time. We make 26 to 35,000 decisions a day. And every single time your intuition's involved. So we all have that ability to do it. And people have to stop thinking like, P&L. They got to stop thinking about shareholders. They got to start thinking about the long-term game. They got to think about, the people that they want to work around. Because when you think about the people you want to work around, they're thinking about, I want to work with you. And that's intuitive resonance.
I love that. I love what you're saying. Now, one thing you brought up is you said a lagging indicator. A lot of times businesses will look at profit. Do you have some examples off the top of your head of what would be good leading indicators for a company to focus around?
Yeah, so there's a number of ones. There's a net promoter score is a really, really good leading indicator. That's a popular one amongst the few that I've interviewed for, as I'm starting a new podcast series on intuitive branding. And there's two of them have talked about the net promoter score as using that as a guide initially. And essentially, for those who don't know, it's really about if you're going to recommend something to somebody and you use it internally, those are really good indications. If you're looking at even putting, you can get a sense in team meetings. You can easily tell by just taking a look at the faces of people. What are they doing in the team meeting? Are they engaged? Is there communication? So there's a lot of these indications that are they're social indications that you can tell. That you can tell if people are happy or if somebody's having a bad day. Does somebody talk to them? Do people want to go for lunch? Are people finding that they can be in a corner by themselves and they're relaxing? So these are all things you just look around and just know. It's just like knowing your family, right? I know my kids. When my kids are having a bad day, I'll instantly know. When my wife is having an issue with something, she doesn't have to open her mouth, right? I can just tell. And we all have that ability to do that. We're just taking that into the workplace, which is just another place. It's just another address. The essence of what we do is the same.
Yeah, I love that. Those are great examples of kind of looking ahead in terms of seeing if you're intuitively applying to your branding. That's really good stuff. Hey, so Sunil, you have a great story about growing and scaling a business from a struggling company doing about $400K in revenue, and then it went all the way up to 3.5 million in a little over 2 years. I got to know, how the heck did you do it?
Yeah, so it was so funny. I had come just to see one of the co-CEOs and just say hello. And I remember coming in and we met at his boardroom and he said, "How are you doing?" And he said, "Okay, I'm doing okay." And so he's licking stamps and putting out an envelope. And he goes, "Sunil, I'm not okay. I'm this co-CEO of this company with 400,000 in revenue, and we're going down pretty quick. And I'm licking my own stamps. Like, what's wrong with this picture?" And he just basically said, "We need help." And I said, "Okay, well, timing couldn't have been perfect." I said, "Well, give me a shot at 3 months. Look at my services for 3 months. And if it works, you like what you see, then we'll continue to go." And we looked at the compensation package. But my thing was very strict. And I said, you and your co-CEO have to be hands off. Every single week, I'll let you know what I'm doing, but you have to be hands off and you have to trust me with what I do. And I had a bit of a track record already with some Fortune 500 companies. So, there was sort of that resume built up that they hopefully had the confidence in me. And so they said, fine, sign off the dotted line. And the very, very first thing we did, they were struggling cash flow, is that I established trust. It was trust. And I raised everybody's salary. And everybody's also, first of all, both of them their jaws dropped. And they did say, "Sunil, we're struggling cash flow wise." And I said, "Yes, I know. But did you also know that each and every single one of your employees is looking elsewhere? So if you want to decelerate faster than you are thinking right now, you better start retaining your employees, because right now they don't give two hoots about you and your problems." And so that's what we did. And then they gave them a moment to pause to say, who is this guy that kind of came in? And so they kind of had this sort of shifty eye thing. And all I did was basically say, "Listen, I want to expand this company. What are your thoughts?" And they've never been asked their opinion. And so I'm jotting notes down. We've had lunches. We would regularly have them, compensated for also talking and helping other people. And so if they did anything above and beyond, they were compensated for that. They were, so it was just celebrated that somebody is finally paying attention to their hard work. And so all I did was establish this two-way trust that they finally had. And when it came to expanding, these were the same people that helped us with operating manuals, with, sometimes traveling with us to the other locations, on their own dime, which we ended up paying them anyways, to say, hey, yeah, if you want to help out, for sure, well, we'd love to. And so all the employees started to work together, and that really accelerated the expansion to 3.5 million in revenues. By the time I had left, they were sixth fastest growing company in Canada at one point, and it just went nuts. And when I ended up stepping away from that company, because the two co-CEOs they didn't have a lot of business experience, and one of them was not really doing things in a very, very proper way. Let's just put it that way. And when things started back up again, even though he was told several times by me that kind of behavior needs to stop. And I don't want to get into legal stuff because there was some really illegal stuff that was going on. I said, either you stop that or I'm gone. And they didn't. And so I basically had a chat with their lawyer, and I said, look, you better advise these two because there are some legal implications. And 6 months later, they imploded. Because as soon as I had left, that trust was gone, and they couldn't. That trust can easily be moved to onto the co-CEOs if they acted in that same manner. Right. And what they just never did. And the same thing happened back again, and it was gone. 6 months later, it imploded, which was such a shame because that could have been a $10 million company for sure.
Right. Do you see that a lot in your clientele where owners or CEOs often are really good at whatever their specialty is in their business, but generally applying intuitive branding or just generally being good in the more rounded business way? They do need help often in these areas to see the bigger picture, if you will.
Absolutely. I mean, many business owners start as an entrepreneur. They start with an idea. They may have some experience in it, but they don't really have any formal training in business. Now, I want to be careful what formal means, because formal does not necessarily mean MBA. It just means that they haven't really managed people effectively, where you are doing the right things. And this is where people like myself come in to say, okay, this is how you can shift. And you've got to make it also permanent, and you've got to make it believable. I've had some clients who've done it on a temporary basis. Well, we just talked about one, and on a temporary basis. But then sometimes they go back to the old way of doing things. And that's when people leave, right? Because there's that initial, we're going to give that person a second or third chance, which is what intuition always gives. Intuition always gives a second chance. But, if you go back to the same old, then people don't want to work for you. And, I had one client that I came in, just because he had a turnover problem, and turnover wasn't the problem. He was the problem. And so when we fixed him initially, it was great. Like people were it's like, I've never seen this place jovial before. I've never heard laughter from him ever. And he was just telling stories of some of his other businesses and sharing some really funny things. And it was such a pleasant place to work. And eventually he went back to the same old thing and just being a miserable person. And then I had left, my contract was done. And I had heard that there was a longtime employee that I had brought in that did some wonderful stuff for this guy. And she said, I had to leave because the stress after you left, it hit her personally. And she was bringing it home. And she said, there's no way that she could do this. And another employee that came afterwards, I think it took her about an hour working for him. And she left right away. And she says, I'm sorry, my kid's sick was the excuse. But what I heard is that she just walked out because it was an hour. She only needed an hour with this guy. That was it.
Wow. That's an interesting story. I do want to go back to the growing company. Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you about, what did you learn from seeing a company grow so fast in such a short amount of time? That's a pretty fast pace. Anything surprising that you hadn't expected or noticed from it?
Yeah. So the surprising thing is that it was easy. It was pretty easy because when you have a team doing this on your behalf, you can delegate these tasks. So you kind of accelerate everything that I wanted to do in terms of my operational plan for expansion, because I had such engaged team members that were just doing things the right way and not my way, but the way that you needed to expand. And everybody helped everybody else. And it just made it so much easier because tasks got done. And they got done earlier, and everybody's helping everybody else, which means I'm not involved. If I'm not in the business, this is such a cliche, but if I'm not sticking my head in the business, I'm looking at on the business, which is okay. I don't have to worry about the operational part anymore because this staff have taken care of what it needs to do. Once I have an expansion location identified, I can now take my hands off that because this team fills in the rest. I just go to the next location. And then I go to another location. I do all the demographic information I need, talk to some of the people, the stakeholders in that area that are going to be touched by that business. And that's it. And once I've identified a location, we have the rent, and we got the contract in place, this team comes in and fills in the rest. So it just was so seamless. And so I'm just like, yep, here's a community, here's a community, here's a community, here's a community. And that's so how easy it got. And if there were problems, I'd come in on the problems once in a while, but they would solve it internally and support each other. It was so easy.
That's awesome. I'm hearing a lot of team building and relationships and trust. My next question revolves around that. What are common mistakes that you see companies make? We've covered a little bit, but as it relates to relationships and creating that trust?
Yeah. So a lot of it is really, empathy is always thrown out there, but, just being you. It's okay to share stories of you. You don't have to be this hardened, seasoned executive that has to wear a suit. And, you don't get into a different alter ego. Just be you. Right. Mm-hmm. And those are the best stories. Those are the people that people are going to resonate with on an intuitive level. That's the connection you want. It's an authentic connection. And then you allow people to do what they do best. Right. And so when you hire people that love that job, then they love that job. Yeah, and one of the people I interviewed was Christina Harbridge. She was in the collection business, and she said she hired people with that twinkle in their eye when someone was going to phone to complain and yell at them. She hired people that lit up when that happened. She actually collected 3 times more, and it was so funny that there was a moment where her business almost went south, and all the employees rallied around. They had a big event, and the people who came were the people who she collected from. They came to celebrate her wins at an award ceremony. So, and that's because she was being vulnerable. She was being open. She was being honest. She was treated people as she hired the right people. That's the connection you feel. And you need to feel that. And it's not team building sheet. It's not team building exercise. You have to feel that it's an exercise, but people really get engaged. And, I've been to team building stuff before. Yeah, we've gone to resorts, and we've, jumped through hoops and went to a jungle gym and this and that. But are you really building a team, or is it just an afternoon off? And there's a real distinct difference, right? So don't just do things for the sake of ticking off a box. Really mean it.
And I do agree with you. I think companies oftentimes miss that. Unfortunately, it's more of a check on the box to go through the motions of a team meeting or whatever. Very interesting. Hey, Sunil, what are some long-term goals you have for your own business?
So for me, it's really trying to get out to as many people as I can, many companies as I can, one company or one person at a time, and to have those conversations, to see something even on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and respond to them, and just keep going with my messaging. And when the messaging just keeps going, I'm kind of living with purpose, because my purpose is just really to help. And when people sense that purpose in a genuine way, then they become part of your tribe. They become attracted to you. And that's how you essentially grow a business, right? So if you look at, for those watching, if you look at the paintings behind me, that's my daughter's art. Her purpose was to help those with disabilities and illnesses express themselves through art. She's raised over $30,000 in a year because of that's her purpose. She's 14.
Wow.
And she has a podcast series as well. And so all I'm doing is I'm taking intuition and saying, live with purpose, have that authenticity with the people, that the messaging. And when it's genuine, people will come and they'd get drawn to you. And for her, it's supporting her through a nonprofit. For me, it's people that want to work for me that made expansion successful. It's people that just want to watch what I do or say what I say. And that's fine, right? And so I'm just here to spread the message. And then that way I live every single day with no regrets. And a lot of people talk about regrets 10 years, 5 years, 20 years later. What about the regrets today? Like, why you want to live with regrets today, right? It makes no sense to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Sunil, it's been awesome chatting with you. If you had to summarize one actionable item from our conversation that business leaders and owners can apply to make their business or life better, can I pass the torch to you, and can you summarize something for us?
Yeah. So the first thing that people need to do is, instead of talking about intuition being, a hear a voice or a gut feeling or things like that, really dig deep to find out what your intuition really is. Everybody's got intuitive signals. And the first thing they do is go back to the decisions, both good and bad, and think about what do they feel in that moment, because those are the intuitive signals that happen. That's the foundation for intuition. And when you have that foundation, when you treat people right, when you want to go through a strategic direction, if you want to expand, if you want to try a new product or service or messaging, your intuitive signal will tell you if it's a positive signal, it's the right decision. If it's a negative signal, it's the wrong decision. So spend the time first to get the foundation of intuition. And then that's how you build trust, because you can tell when someone trusts you because on your intuitive signal. And you can also tell when people don't. And that's important to know.
Excellent. Excellent. So I'll put your contact info in the show notes at thinktyler.com. But if we want to learn more about you or contact you, where should we go?
Absolutely. So on the personal side, there's intuitionology.com. And so that takes you through relationships and helping you get rid of the relationships that are wasting your time. And then sunilgodse.com is the intuitive branding side. So if you want to learn more about the leadership, HR, sales, marketing, I've got some boot camps that are coming up and a membership that's also been coming up. I'm doing a joint venture with someone out of the UK who was a coach of the year in 2019 and 2020. So lots of really good learning, and it's just there to help people just grow the right way.
Awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Once again, thank you for your time. Really enjoyed it, Sunil.
Thank you.
That's all for this episode of Think Business with Tyler. But we have plenty more resources to help you in your pursuit of business excellence on our website at thinktyler.com. If you'd like to be featured in a future episode of the show, feel free to reach out to us on social media at think_Tyler. We look forward to helping you think life, think success, and think business.